in the womb of the pregnant woman, so you cannot foresee the actions of God who causes all things to happen. So, sow your seed in the morning, and don't hold back your hand in the evening, since you don't know which is going to succeed, the one or the other, or if both are equally good. His metaphor here, which I think is, that's part of his conclusion of the book, that's what he's saying in chapter 3. His metaphor is, I used to do this when I was a kid, it's okay, so I'm supposed to go wash the car, but it looks like it might rain, so I'll wait till tomorrow, and of course it didn't rain, or it never did. It used to drive my mother crazy if I would never mow the lawn, because, it might rain, right? So you don't know just by looking what's going to happen, so just go and live your life. Sometimes it's going to rain, sometimes it's not, and we're going to try to handle it. As it goes over here, right, again with, back to chapter 3, right? When is a time for losing? That's verse 6, right? A time for seeking and a time for losing. So again, there are two ways to read this, right? What's a time for losing? One way could be to say, well, it's never terribly comforting, but there is that, fortuitous loss. Was it Saul or was it David? Or Moses, right? Moses chasing the sheep that's running away, and that's when he sees the burning bush. There are people who try to explain away tragic death by saying, no, it all happened for a reason. That's kind of one way. The other way is, again, back with this equilibrium, right? Why does loss happen? Because sometimes we lose things, sometimes we find things. That's kind of the way that the world works. So let's go on to, anybody else want to say anything? So let's look at verse 9 then, where he sums up the poem. Right? Again, that what value, that word is yitron, could also be translated as profit. What value or profit can the man of affairs get from what he earns? And what he earns is amal. What is the point of work if sometimes you're going to win and sometimes you're going to lose? That's his question. And again, that word for what he earns, amal, is a technical term for extra hard work.
Amal means, is translated as profit?
The Hebrew word for profit is yitron, and the word here is what he earns is amal.
But you said there was other meanings for yitron.
Well, here it says, sorry, are you looking at JPS? It says what value? What value?
No,
right?
I have what profit.
Okay, so and JPS here it says what value. So but that second word is yitron, right? He's saying that's gain, right? Profit might be a better translation. So he's saying, what am I going to get from all of my work? Now, if it was the word regular work, right, labors, we know why we have regular work. Because you want to provide food for your family and you want to have clothes and whatever it is. He is concerning himself with the person who overdoes it. You're complaining that you're working all day and you're not getting anything out of it, right? So what's the answer? Don't work all day, right? Come home. I'm told that some people actually come to that realization at one point.
Well, the question I have is, if you take profit, or you use the word value, there is work that gives you more than what you need to eat and raise a family and to meet the requirements of daily living. So there is profit that is not material.
Right. Well, and he would call that non-material profit enjoyment. Because the non-material profit could be something that you learn while you're there, you enjoy using your mind, it's the wisdom that's gained. And that's where, right, so he would be saying, turn your work into something that you can enjoy.
Or satisfactions. There are satisfactions that come from work, some work,
Right.
that is not materialistic. So why
Right.
does he say that?
Huh?
Why doesn't he say that?
Well, I think that in some ways he is saying that. I mean, he's going to continue saying it, and we're going to see it, and we're going to talk about companionship. I think that he is saying, right, if you were able to, right, the problem with the world is not that bad things always seem to be happening to me, because bad things happen to everybody. The problem with the world is that I'm unable to deal with the world and try to find satisfaction in it. So if the complaint, right, if you're a healthy worker who finds satisfaction, either that you don't overdo it or you find satisfaction in what you're doing, you wouldn't be asking the question, right? I mean, I think that, well, he doesn't say, look, he doesn't say it in straight words. It's a fair complaint. But when he talks about searching for wisdom alongside it or finding the beauty alongside it, I think that's what he's saying.
Are you going to the next few verses? Because I think that they're at the heart of his thinking.
Go.
All right, I'm in 10. I have observed the business that God gave man to be concerned with. He brings everything to pass precisely at its time. He also puts eternity in their mind, without man ever guessing from first to last all the things that God brings to pass. Thus I realize that only worthwhile thing there is for them is to enjoy themselves and do what is good in their lifetime. Also that whenever man does eat and drink and gets enjoyment out of all his wealth, it is a gift of God.
Okay, so let's stop there for a second. And what do you?
Well, I think that's the essence, that you work hard, you should do good things, you should try to enjoy your life and realize that this is a gift to you and a gift from God.
But again, so he's redefining the problem. So we think that the problem is all the things that don't work in the world. But he said, I've observed the business that God gave man to be concerned with, or one of the commentators said to be afflicted with. Right? What is man's problem? The problem is that God brings everything to pass precisely at its time. But he puts eternity in their mind. Right? But without man ever guessing. The problem is when we start trying to guess why the world happens the way that it is. Right? We make right. This is what he's saying. He's basically saying you're making yourself crazy by this stuff. And instead, he goes, thus I realize the only worthwhile thing there is for them to enjoy themselves and do what is good in their lifetime. Now, a lot of people are bothered by this notion of, well, then you should just party all the time, right? Because that's not a very Jewish value. I don't want to, I don't like what's going on in the world, so I'm going to drink myself, until it all feels good. But I don't think that's quite what he's saying.
Yeah,
if you read it that way, that's when you start to not like the book. What he's saying is to do that, right? But he's also said before, partying is bad, right? If you eat and drink too much, it becomes bad. But do that and then recognize that that is a gift from God. So, two ways to look at God. One is to say, why is God doing all these things to me? The other is to say, look at all these great things that God has given me. And the two don't negate each other. The complaint often on Harold Kushner's book, right? So Harold Kushner's thesis in a strange way, right? Why do bad things happen to good people? Well, God can't control why bad things happen to good people.
That's not his book.
Sorry, it's called When,
When.
right? But he asks the question, and he says, well, God can't control why bad things happen to good people, and so don't try to blame God for why the bad things happen, but rather look to God for strength, look to God for support, find how God's going to help you get. Now, the complaint that people put through is to say, well, that's letting God off the hook. How can you look to God to help you through things if you're not going to blame God for what happened wrong? Kohelet is coming in there a little bit also. there is loss in the world, and there is goodness in the world that I can enjoy, and that comes from God. The solution to the loss is the enjoyment in the world. It's both and it's not letting God off. Ira, I cut you off a while ago, and Judy.
No, I think that's fine.
This is sort of the perspective, though, of a wealthy man, don't you think? I mean, he is the son of a king. And
He is the king.
He has the wealth to enjoy, so he can speak to that. If you don't have that, if you're worried about, if you have food or drink, or it may give you a different perspective in this.
Oh, Jeff brought some of this up last week.
Okay.
I don't think that, you weren't? Oh, I mean, I don't remember exactly how Jeff brought it up, but you were talking about first world perspectives and third world perspectives. And absolutely, he is not right. There are people there are problems in the world and there are problems in the world.
Right.
There are people who have problems, they don't have enough to eat. He's talking to the Montgomery County, that our problems are, my car got a scratch on it, something like that.
There are people in
But he
Montgomery County that
doesn't
don't
go
have
back, well, I guess he does, right? His solution there is that, so on the car and the scratch, and he'd say, wait a minute, did you not notice the other, 2,000 cubic inches of the car that didn't have a scratch on it? Those also came from God, right? Yeah.
I'm finding a little perplexing the line. He also, or at least many ways to interpret it, he also puts eternity in their mind. I mean, there's an explanation here, but I'm not sure is it that then man starts to say, well, if bad things happen, it'll all be rectified in the world to come, but maybe there really is no world to come.
So,
God's put that in our mind.
I'm gonna read you the comment here, but I'm gonna say my reading of that first. My understanding of he puts eternity in their mind is he gave us the ability to understand the world, and that's part of the problem. By eternity here, I'm thinking that he gave us the opportunity to see the long view, and our ability to understand that stuff is also our greatest downfall. I'm just going to read what the translation or what the comment here is. God made humans desire eternity, or made us imagine that we will live forever. That's Abraham ibn Ezra, 11th century. Nowhere else, however, does ha'olam mean eternity. Others understand ha'olam to mean the world, and take the sentence to mean that God implanted in humans a desire to possess or understand the world. Right? Rashbam says that what God put in minds is time, that we would know that there are good times and bad times, because if all the times were of only one sort, we would not see the need to repent. But these supplements are not supported by the text. In any case, desire is irrelevant to the context. They are reading this as God gave us the ability to understand too much. We know too much. Think Tower of Babel. Right? And if you wanted to, nobody really knows exactly what the Tower of Babel was supposed to teach us, but if the issue was, right, don't climb too high, don't try to explain too much of the world, eventually you're going to fall, right? There's a piece of humility there, right? Going overboard in your work, don't think you can do everything, eventually you will hit the wall. And Kohelet would then add, right, from getting from here to here, you feel good about yourself. If you start thinking, I have to get to here, well, you're going to get to here, and then you're going to want to get higher, but eventually somewhere up here, that's when it's going to make you miserable. I don't understand the next two verses, but we'll read them.
Which of these?
We're up to verse 14. So these two I didn't understand, or the next two? All right, somebody just finish the chapter for us, then we'll figure out.
I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be added to it, nor anything taken from it. And God hath made it so, that men should fear before him. That which hath been long ago, and that which is to be, hath already been. And God seeketh that which is pursued. I don't understand that. Moreover, I saw under the sun.
It's 16,
He's reading
reading
from
other
this.
translation.
From the
16.
Sun-
Not reading from the.
It's a close translation.
Yeah,
This is,
yeah.
in place of justice, that wickedness was there, and in place of righteousness, that wickedness was there. And I said in my heart, the righteous and the wicked judge, the righteous and the wicked God will judge. For there is a time there for every purpose and for every work. We'll stop there.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so 14. I read 14 and 15 as the same stuff that he was saying in chapter 1. That, you know, the world doesn't change that much. What we think is new already happened a long time ago. It's just going to happen. Again, if you want to read into it, though, you can say, right, God makes all these things in the world. Yeah.
Well, this is fine for someone living in a pastoral society where one century is just about the same as another century, culturally, socially, and politically, or not much changes from one millennium to another. So, but nobody who's looked through the 20th century could accept this.
Well, and so I will say that he's really talking about two different pieces, and I think we made that point last week as well, that this idea of the world never changing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't here last week.
I'm saying we can leave that out. I mean, like I get that people don't. I mean, what he's sort of saying and sort of stating the problem is sometimes it feels like I'm not making headway in the world, right? One response to the feeling that I'm not making headway in the world is to say, no, you really are making headway in the world, right? Or the other is to say, no, but you should enjoy the world while you live. I will take your criticism that this idea that the world is exactly the same as it was doesn't speak to the 20th century or 21st century.
It was say the 21st century, it does sort of fit a little with the multi-world hypothesis in quantum physics. I mean, the idea that the universe is expanding and there's multiple expansions, right? And that therefore the universe is essentially going to repeat itself given infinity.
But man's perspective is the same, even though the world is changing. Because the world you're looking at, and you see it sometimes it's this way, sometimes it's that way, that's what's the same.
I mean, the other piece, I mean, it does happen and sort of, but I don't know whether that's really what he's complaining about, is sort of the sloppiness of people who think that they're reinventing, they're inventing something new and somebody else kind of already did it. There's a big problem in the Orthodox world today, the problem of the agunah, that if a woman gets divorced from her, if a husband divorces his wife but doesn't grant her a get, that she's anchored. The word agunah, she's not allowed to remarry. And so, they've been trying to solve this problem for 50 years. My sister got married, there was an Orthodox rabbi there, and he was so excited to give her something that the Rabbinical Council of America gave, a prenuptial agreement, that they're both agreeing in writing, signed, that either one of them can ask the other one to bring them to the Beit Din, and they're going to grant them a get. And so they solved the agunah problem because explicitly they wrote a letter of intent that either one of them can request a divorce. Well, the conservative movement did that 50 years ago. With the so there is that sort of piece of here we are, we're going to pretend that other things in the world don't exist around us, we're starting over. Maybe that's a piece of it. I think that the more compelling problem that Kohelet has with the world is what he says though in 16 and 17. Again, there is justice in the world, and there is wickedness in the world, and righteousness and wickedness exist right next to each other. And I know that the same thing is going to happen to the wicked person and the righteous person, because we all die. And that can be bothersome to know that I'm not rewarded for being a good person. Now the rabbis again read into that no, the reason Kohelet says it's all going to work itself out is because in the world to come, the wicked is going to suffer and all of this. But what I think that what he's really saying is, don't worry about it too much. Right, going back again, there is righteous, there is wickedness. It's not always going to work out. The problem is not that it's not always going to work out. The problem is that you're worrying about the fact that it's not always going to work out. By the way, I do want to make a sort of a general comment. Understanding what Kohelet says, we don't have to take the leap to say, I'm supposed to live my life in accordance with Kohelet's view in the 21st century person. I think we want to try to understand what Kohelet says because we want to understand what Kohelet says. What do you say, Ryan?
Yeah, I guess the notion though of it being somehow different today than it was in his time, I'm not sure I buy that, because I think you still search, regardless on an individual level, for meaning in this world. And how do you live, especially today in a world that's very complicated, very noisy, very angry. The same issues that he's saying still apply today, regardless.
Well, in that sense, he is definitely offering, in my view, a 21st century
Right.
problem.
That's where I was
And a lot of
going.
times, it's the same thing with medieval commentators. When you agree with the problem and hear their statement of the problem, you're like halfway there. Don't like the answer? Okay, fine.
Well, so I guess where I was coming to, it's kind of a timeless message, regardless of whether it's in his century or in our century.
Right. Right, so in verse 18, so I decided as regards men, to dissociate them from the divine beings and to face the fact that they are beasts. For in respect of the fate of man and the fate of beast, they have one and the same fate. As one dies, so does the other, and both have the same life breath. Man has no superiority over beast, since both amount to nothing. Both go to the same place, both came from dust, and both return to dust. Who knows if man's life breath does rise upward, and if beast's breath does sink down into the earth? I saw that there is nothing better for man than to enjoy his possessions, since that is his portion. For who can enable him to see what will happen afterwards? So this line in verse 19 that says, man has no superiority over beasts, since both amount to nothing, that actually is in our daily liturgy in the morning, and actually it's in the Ne'ilah liturgy on Yom Kippur as well.